right, everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Tombstone Goldbelt webinar. It is January 16th. It's an absolute delight to introduce this topic and hopefully some new investors who are watching this to what I think is one of the most exciting gold stories that's unfolding. Would you guys mind popping on real quick, and I can go through a quick intro? I'll just go through everybody, and that'll save us a little time when we come to the presentations. Thank you. I think we're missing Tara, but she'll pop up here. Okay, look, my name is Quentin Henney. I'm a geologist. I've been working in the mining industry for about 40 years now. And I love exploration. I love gold exploration in particular. I'm very passionate about gold. I like other metals, but gold's where my first love is, I guess, to put it bluntly. And I've been part of gold cycles over time, and watching this Yukon story, the Tombstone Goldbelt story, unfold over the past few years is just riveting. I think this is one of the more exciting gold stories that we're in, and we're going to be in for the coming years. Okay, so I want to introduce folks. There are going to be a series of presentations. I'm going to give a little spiel at the beginning here. I'll just talk about gold and whatnot for about eight minutes or so, and then I'm going to go through a sequence of presentations with the folks you see on this on the screen. Hopefully down at the bottom here, we got 4 guests joining us. If you move straight off to my left, I got Simon Ridgway from Rackla. Simon is the CEO there. He's a world-class explorer, run a number of companies. Simon, why don't you say hi and give a little background about yourself?
Hi to everyone. Yeah, I've been exploring, started off in the Yukon way back in 1976, 77, prospecting there, and then running public companies since about 1992. Mostly in the American continent, a lot of the time in Central America, but also a lot of time in the Yukon territory.
Wonderful. All right, and then next over, we got Mike Burke from Sitka. Mike, you've been geologically working in the Yukon for a long time. Why don't you give people a little background?
Yeah, I'm long in the tooth in the Yukon. I wasn't born there like Tara or Scott, but I began my career there when I went to university in Vancouver. My summers I spent starting in 1983 up in the Yukon, and oddly enough, my first summer was looking at gold and tungsten with geologist Tony Hitchin with Canamax Resources. So I've been to a lot of the Tombstone Goldbelt before it really was. So I spent 20 years with the Yukon Geological Survey as a geologist, and then re-entered the private world, getting involved with public companies, and joined Sitka Gold a couple years ago. So pretty happy to be involved in this belt of rocks. It's been a long part of my personal history in the Yukon. It's pretty cool.
Very good. Thank you. Next over, we have Tara Christie, head of Banyan. And Tara is she's a native of Yukon. I mean, it's really exciting to talk about stories where people who basically grown up in the jurisdiction they're working and have such a long history and such close relationships. It's really neat to see. So, Tara, why don't you tell people about yourself?
Great. Thanks, Quentin. And, it's because of my long history in alluvial mining that I first met you on some of the projects that you've worked on in the past. Tanzania, yeah, that was, did a little bit of stint down there looking at some gold alluvial projects. I grew up, my dad's a geologist, just like Scott's dad. Grew up collecting soil samples, placer mining, long history in the Yukon. As you said, I was part of the Placer Miners Associations, got the opportunity to work with First Nations early, right as the land claims agreements were signed, and then became the CEO of Banyan in 2016. I have a geotechnical engineering background as well as a bit of geology. So, but really, I spent a long time involved in everything from, permitting. I was on the environmental assessment board to, actually mining to prospecting. And I think it gives me a broad range of skills. And I'm super excited. This is a great group of companies, and we're in such an exciting belt of rocks.
Wonderful, wonderful. Good intro. Next over, we have Scott Burdell. I've known Scott and his dad, Ron Burdell, for many, many years now. And it's an absolute delight. Scott, like Tara, is basically a Yukon native. And why don't you give an intro about yourself, Scott?
Sure, thanks, Quinn. Scott Burdell, CEO of Snowline, a prospector and a geologist. And similar to Tara, born into it up here. Stockholm syndrome sufferer, I guess, in terms of staying in the industry and moving forward. But prospecting since I was really young, and ultimately, we've gotten into some pretty exciting things over the years. And Snowline was just a continuation of trying to advance our projects when the markets just got so bad for so long that nobody would buy them. So kind of a serendipitous outcome of a bad situation.
Understood. Well, look, mining is like that, and everybody who's on this has either lived through experiences like what you described or is going to. So it's a lot of ups and downs in this business. Look, okay, if you guys could just part for a little bit here, I'll give a spiel about gold, and then I'll introduce you one by one. Okay, look, everybody who's joining this, I want to kind of set the framework. Okay, first of all, I've got to acknowledge I'm an advisor to Crescat Capital, an investor, and we invest in many, many companies, including those in the Yukon here. So I don't want to let that slip by before I forget. I usually realize I forgot it when the webinar is over. But anyway, we're delighted to be part of this and actually watch all of these stories unfold. Okay, so here's the thing about our gold industry. Right now, as everybody knows, the major mining companies need new deposits. If you look at the portfolios of most major mining companies, they might have one or two tier one assets. Maybe some companies have more, but even tier one assets are growing along a tooth in most of these companies. In other words, they've been mining these for many years, and any ore deposit only has a finite life. Okay, they don't last forever. Well, we need to fix that. Okay, and it's part of the gold cycle. It's part of the commodity cycle that exploration has its day. It's a very cyclical industry. We've been through pretty tough times here lately where capital is not readily available in the space, but it's starting to turn. Everybody can see it. Everybody can see commodity prices going up. Certainly the gold price, which is currently a little over $2,700, it's near an all-time high. We're seeing margins in the gold miners improve. In fact, some of the highest margins that have been recorded in history have actually been reported here in recent times. That said, it's not a perfect, it's not like everything's rosy. Okay, it's been a tough slog. A lot of other investments out there in the world, whatever cryptos and tech companies and whatnot have attracted a lot of, primarily younger investors, but I want to change that. I want to show, especially young investors, hopefully there's some listening to this, that this whole concept of discovery, like finding something that nobody knew about. Okay, you're basically out there exploring, trying to find something of value, can create a huge amount of return, a huge amount of wealth for people. Okay, and exploration is where this happens. Now, it used to be exploration companies would go off, mining companies would go off and explore by themselves. Each mining company traditionally used to have a mining, an exploration staff. They would have, 30, 40, 50 people who were focused on exploring for the next mine. Those days are gone. They largely died in the late 1990s after the gold price fell and things like BRIEX happened, and bad times occurred. But since the early 2000s, we've seen this dynamic shift where exploration has basically shifted into, primarily into the world of junior mining companies. There were junior mining companies before. Don't get me wrong. I mean, it's always been a game that investors, have looked at as potential high risk but high reward opportunity. But I would say since the early 2000s, when the gold price started coming around, we've seen periods of where junior mining really flourished. Okay, a lot of capital was attracted, a lot of money was put into exploration, and a lot of really successful stories came to fruition. Well, I think we're on the cusp of that again. I really do. I think now we're at a chronic point where we don't have enough deposits, new deposits to go out and mine. Yes, they have to be developed and stuff, but we need to find that pipeline. We need to develop a pipeline of new gold deposits to basically bring in production and add to the ones that are being depleted in these major mining companies. Therefore, this is a good time to enter. You kind of enter something when it's darkest before dawn, right? You want to enter at the low spot. We're definitely in a lower spot in this cycle, this industry, and I think from here we should see some good times. Now, why do I focus on this Tombstone Goldbelt? Okay, I really am attracted to this because I see the potential for basically a generational or district scale, certainly district scale, but a generational sequence of discoveries. And look, this is in early days yet. Okay, I think over the next few years, decade, 2 decades, that the levels of discoveries we see across this belt will unfold kind of like we saw in Nevada in the 1980s. The last big exploration cycle was in the 80s, early 90s, and we saw, certain areas like Nevada really become a focus. There were hundreds of millions of ounces of gold discovered in Nevada in the 1980s into the 1990s. That's the kind of view I take about the Yukon here. This belt, this intrusive gold belt, is prolific. It's big. There's lots of targets to chase. These companies are just beginning to test some of these ideas. And I think we're going to see a sequence of discoveries, basically a whole series of discoveries come over the next few years. What are we looking for? Well, the gold deposits up in this belt are associated with granite intrusions. These are magmas that came up through the ground, and they have a unique chemistry. They're what we call reduced intrusions. What does that mean? It means the chemistry of that magma was reduced, and it didn't have oxygen. Okay, chemically reduced. Okay, that means it doesn't have much oxygen. And those magmas are conducive for dissolving quite a bit of gold. And the gold goes into those magmas, comes up, and then as the magma is cooling, crystallizing, the fluids that come off of it can form these wonderful, wonderful gold deposits. Okay, so long story short, we got a very prolific belt, the Tombstone Gold Belt, in which these things come up like mushrooms. There's just innumerable targets. And this belt extends all the way through the Yukon, central Yukon, over into the Northwest Territories, as you can see. Yes, a lot of people say it continues over into Alaska. There's the Tintina Fault System, which is a huge fault that's offset it. But yeah, it continues over into Alaska too, where we have deposits like the Fort Knox mine and other companies like Tectonics over there. Okay, but today we're going to talk about these 4 companies. We're going to start out with Rackler. So Simon, can you pop up, and I will let you drive the bus here for a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you for the intro, Quentin, and thank you for putting on these webcasts. They're really good for the companies and also hopefully for the investors that listen in. And to all those that are listening, I want to wish you a happy and healthy 2025. And for those of you that are Rackler shareholders, I think we're going to have a pretty exciting summer ahead. And I'll show you why I think that now. Forward-looking statements, I think I've just made one, and I'll probably make a few more throughout the presentation. So as Quentin said, the belt in Alaska and all the way through the Yukon and into the Northwest Territories, it's always been known as the Tombstone Gold Belt, but actually most of the gold was in the western side of the belt around in the area of western Yukon and up in Alaska. The eastern side of the belt was not known to have gold until Snowline changed our thinking when he made his discovery in 2022, I think, with the first holes. I took a look and sort of went to join the gold rush then I thought would evolve, but there really wasn't one. You know, Snowline had made the discovery, put out some fantastic results, and all through the 80s and the 90s and even early this century would have created amazing gold rush of people running in to stake claims. But really nobody responded. The market did, Snowline share price, but really as far as staking, nobody went there. I don't know why that was, but they got Rattler's interest. And I looked to the east of Snowline and picked up some, what I'll call the border intrusives, a bunch of these granite intrusives that came up just along the border that forms a topographic high and into the Northwest Territories. So we had those properties and we worked them in 2023, 2024. We found some good systems, but when we drilled them, they turned out to be quite weak, nothing very spectacular. I think there's still more work to be done on those intrusives, but an unusual thing happened in July of last year. Some ground actually came open for staking. The government of the Northwest Territories opened up an area for staking for industry, something that seldom happens these days, especially in North America. We were quick to act, and we went in and we staked what's known as a grad property. We centered on the North Nahanni Pluton, southeast of the large O'Grady batholith. Really no work done in this area previously. On the creek that runs to the northeast from that big red blob, which is the Nahanni Pluton, there were some old claims known as the Risby Copper Showing. A friend of mine that I've known for many, actually not alive now, but he worked back in the 70s. He staked some ground in here in 72, called the Risby Copper Showing. It was drilled, and a couple of those drill holes hit an intrusive a long way from this body. So there may be other intrusives in this area that we picked up. There is one to the south that we haven't looked at yet, that smaller red blob. That is a body that we haven't worked. But when I flew in when we staked this property, and I prospected the edge of this intrusive in the northeast corner there, and there was a lot of veining in the intrusive. I got quite impressed. Stockwork veining and sheeted veining. I took a few samples that didn't actually run, as we found out later on in that part, but I got excited by what I saw. So when I got back to camp with the crew that night, we determined to go back in there and to do stream sediment sampling all around that main intrusive body, and to do all cirque sampling in the big valleys that are draining it up, talus sampling in the cirques. So we did that, and we went back to camp, got all the results in, and we determined to do airborne geophysics and photogrammetry over that area also, because we did see this second intrusive, and we thought there may be more hidden intrusives. We did that work. We got the results from that work sort of mid to late August, and we got some exceptional talus results on the very southern end of that intrusive body. You'll see that line of purple blobs. We got about a 550 meters sample in the talus that ran over 1 gram per ton. The other cirque to the northeast a little bit also had some good anomalies in, but the results we got from that sampling on that talus sample in that cirque, we called it the bite zone because those samples also had pretty high bismuth and telluride, which is something that comes with these gold systems fairly consistently. We also had some rock samples taken on the geologist Doug Murray that walked that talus line, took a few rock samples. They came back grabs off the outcropping intrusive where he saw some good alteration. And they came back with some spectacular gold numbers, 92 grams and 16 grams gold. Again, very high bismuth, very high telluride, low arsenic, pretty typical for these kind of grad systems. If you look to that cliff face is about 450 meters high. It's quite steep, quite rugged. A lot of alteration in the intrusive further up. from that, we went back in about a week later when the weather cleared. We were camped about 70 kilometers from this batholith intrusive, so it's quite a ways away. But when we got the results of the rock and the stream back, and we also had the results of the photography, we see the whole hillside is covered in the same fracture system. We took more rock samples in there on this. These are basically 2-meter chip samples along the outcropping intrusive at the breaker slope. We couldn't get much higher than that. In total, we have about 10 man days on this property in total. You know, where we see the intrusive outcropping and the talus slope, 11 grams, 5 grams, a lot of good gold numbers. I think from the average of all the samples we took in that 10 days, we were over a gram on every sample. Some of them, a few of them dead, of course, but the average was very good. So from here, why don't we go to the video and I can walk you through it. So we have that same cliff face, which we call the bite zone for the BA and telluride that's in there. As we start closing in on this face, you'll see that rusty alteration and the fractures system that we sampled in from the base at the talus continues all the way uphill, pretty intense fracturing, a lot of alteration in the intrusive, a lot of rusty staining. Maybe that's the same business telluride we see at the bottom of the hill. And it continues on the backside of this ridge too. We never did get to the ridge top. We didn't have the weather or the timing to get up there and do any sampling on the ridge top. As we spin around to the face, you'll see the same alteration on this side here also. We'll spin around to the back of it and you see the same fracture system. That yellow line is the intrusive contact. As we come around to the backside, the same fracture system exists on this face also. We didn't get into this face. There were some samples taken at the base from float to the roll down. Again, we had some good gold numbers and some good bismuth telluride numbers at the base. That was closer to the sediment contact. So we also had arsenic in those samples. Look at the intensity of the fracturing within the intrusive. The same orientation that we sampled at the talus cliff interface. It's a pretty intense target, pretty intense alteration. It's going to be obviously challenging. We're going to need geologists that work on ropes to get these faces sampled on both sides. We'll spin back around to where we came from. You know, all of these pretty steep to climb. A lot of sampling needs to be done. So we plan to bring in geos that can work on ropes. We need to get a backhoe into the valley at the bottom so we can sample the, you know, from the under the talus where we're getting all these gold numbers. On the other side of the valley too, where we have the intrusive sediment contact, we have some good gold numbers over there as well. Again, with bismuth and telluride. So we'll be needing to put pads, drill pads along that ridge top once the sampling has been done and shown that the fracture system or the gold continues to the top of the ridge. Down at the bottom where you see the yellow line again, that's the contact with the intrusive. The samples there are running. That white line there, we got 38 meters of 1.5 grams in a chip channel sample across the intrusive, cutting that same fracture system that we talked about. So access is not bad. We got a road, North Tahani Road through here. We've got a camp from the Selwyn Cheong that we've reached a rental deal on. That's about 35 kilometers from the Grant property. So we'll be camping there. Camp needs a bit of fix up, but not too much. 30 kilometers from the property, it's not too bad. Shares outstanding, about 107 million shares outstanding. Warrants 43 million. They're mostly around the 25 to 35 cent range. So if we have some good success with the drilling, that should bring in some funding. We have cash, 3.5 million in the treasury, So good funding to get started on the property.
Wonderful. All right, Simon. Thank you so much. Look, I think we got to keep things at 10 minutes per person here. But if I had to sum things up, I would say that this being in outcrop, everything that you just showed us is just sticking out of the ground, is really the first target that you've had that is like that. The other targets were you were using more peripheral data that suggested the targets were there.
Yeah.
This one's different. This one's different. Yeah.
This one's different, sticking out of the ground.
Correct. Okay. I'm very excited about this. I do agree that I think 2025 could be a big year for you. Okay. And I wish I had time here, but I can see that the clock is already ticking here. So I'm being told I've got to move. Okay. So,
right.
Thank you very much, Simon. Okay. Snowline is next. Scott. Okay. Take it away, man. Scott, we can't hear you. Sorry, bud, but you're frozen. Are you able to hear us? Oh boy. There we go. He's going to refresh. No, still frozen. Thinking on the fly, can we reorder the prezos? And maybe Scott can log back in. He's in the Yukon, so it's probably yeah. Scott, if you can hear me, try refreshing your browser real quick just to see if that works. Just hit the refresh button. Oh, he's left the room. Now he's joined. Okay, there we go.
All right, thanks. Yeah, I'll go.
All right.
Extra.
You're getting a cup of coffee, right? Take it away, man.
Okay, well, thanks for the opportunity here. And yeah, I'll make some forward-looking statements as well, if that's the nature of the game. So just as a quick 50,000-foot primer, we're an exploration company, but we also have sort of the foundation of a development company with the discovery of our Valley asset, which we've rapidly advanced from grassroots greenfield discovery a couple of years ago to a significant initial resource, and we're actively expanding on that and trying to advance it as well. That's a pretty special discovery, and we think that there's potential for more. We're well positioned with a strong treasury, over 43 million at the start of the year here, and that gives us runway to explore aggressively. We've got 5 drills parked on site right now, ready to turn on in the spring, and that'll give us runway through 2025 and even into 2026. So it's a pretty exciting place to be. Very happy just to note continued recognition of the company in 2024 through the receipt of the Robert Bucky Award for Environmental Stewardship. We've tried to set a pretty high standard for ourselves in terms of environmental respect, in terms of building a company that's good for the Yukon, and doing things the right way. We had a big season at our biggest by far in 2024. We did that safely, a very complex, multifaceted program, but we did it safely and cheaply. And, we're collecting good data out there. And of course, we're out there to go big, to find big deposits that we think the rocks have the potential for. And, that thesis has been borne out very quickly. So just jumping right in, Valley is our flagship asset, as I mentioned. And it's you can see it's actually a somewhat tight footprint, 200 meter scale bar there at the bottom right. So we're looking at probably 700 meters by about 500 meters, give or take. It's open, but there's a very nice plug of mineralization sitting right there. And it's very consistent. It sits right at surface, and it's just kind of ideally situated for how you'd want to find mineralization in rocks. And it's the middle of a big, flat, broad glacial valley bottom, hence the name valley, which is also nice, to basically dig into what's effectively a pit-shaped ore body from a flat surface. So you can see A to A prime here and B to B prime. I'll just quickly go through those sections just so you can get an idea of what this looks like in 3 dimensions. So there's A to A prime. So this is basically a cross section. The veins that carry the mineralization are striking in and out of the page here. And you can see, this initial resource estimate based on 28,000 meters of drilling, 55% of it's already in the indicated category. And that's largely because of the continuity. And I'll just jump back a slide here where you can see the individual assays. You get into the high grade mineralization and you're just in it, in 3 dimensions, length, width, and depth. It's just extremely homogeneous mineralization. And so, you have what's basically a pit-shaped system open, and we've drilled 25,000 meters since this resource estimate, and we'll have that all back and updated hopefully before we kick off the field season this year in May. So lots to look forward to in the interim, and 2025 should be another big season for us. Our discovery cost, and just looking at what we've thrown at Valley, is about $3.20 per ounce. So really nice to have come into something so quickly on launching the company, something of such high caliber. And this is that long section, so B2B prime. This is kind of going down the axis of the valley. And you can see that in addition to just showing kind of the block model that informs the estimate, we've actually split it out just to give an idea of what production might look like here. And on the left, you can see just a picture of the ore. As as Quentin mentioned, it's basically a granite coast rock, granodiorite in this case, and you can just see these tags are, without exception, mineralized over hundreds of meters. It's just, I've never seen anything like it, and it's pretty exciting. And so this, a few parts are covered up here, but this is, splitting out these 4 shells, 1, 2, 3, 4. This is not different pits. This is just to give a better idea of the stages. So there's that overall mineral resource. You can see there's a waste to mineralization ratio of about 0.9 to 1. Can't call it a stripping ratio yet because we're pre-economic studies, and so it's not a properly designed pit yet, but it's still, throwing some reasonable assumptions like a 45-degree pit wall angle overall, and other factors added to constrain what could be an economic pit. And so, so that's really nice. And if you do some very forward-looking math just based on this 25,000 ton per day assumption, you're looking at, it would take you over 17 years to mine through that, and roughly 425,000 ounces production per year. So again, I caution that's a very forward-looking statement. This is just to give a flavor of what does this resource actually mean based on these assumptions. What would this look like? And going to this starter pit, a lot of operations are plagued by not having a good starter pit. Valleys is phenomenal, and that's part of why we broke it out like that. So looking at the metrics of that first shell, you have about 42 tons of material. Your waste to mineralization ratio works out to 0.08 to 1 at an average combined grade of 2.35 grams per ton. And so, and that comes out to about 689,000 ounces per year. For context, Newmont's guidance on 2024 production globally, including their tier 1 and tier 2 assets, is 6.9 million ounces. So this 25,000 ton per day rate is really based on just what a single shovel could get out of a very low strip situation like that. So you're looking at potentially having, a single shovel that can match 10% of the output from the world's largest miner. That's phenomenal. 12% after they divest these other assets. So, that's a big part of why we're so excited about Valley. This just puts those stripping ratio or the waste to ore ratios into context of, what's out there in terms of open pit gold mines. You can see the global average around 1.3 gram per ton grade, stripping ratio of about 4 times. Whereas, Valley just is in a league of its own, especially that starter pit. You look at the most prolific deposit of this kind, Fort Knox in Alaska. Their starter pit worked out, their first 5 years of production, about a gram per ton, 0.8. So, good metrics for sure. But that's not even competitive with the life of mine add Valley. And if you look at, where they're operating now, 30 years later, it's still a great asset. But, very low grade. It works because it's big, it's continuous, it has great metallurgy. But yeah, the Valley starter pit here, again, north of 2 grams, very low strip ratio or waste to ore ratio. And when it comes to the actual amount of gold that you get out of rock moved, it's literally an order of magnitude above a lot of what's out there. So it's pretty exciting. And when you think about what that means in terms of your cost, we've yet to do proper economic studies, so this is all qualitative at this point, but this is the Fort Knox reserve grade from 2018, from the latest reserve statements that I've seen. And just kind of putting that into a 1-to-1 strip versus, and I think their strip is higher now, versus what's coming out of that starter pit, it's very, very different. Good metallurgy, as I mentioned, just cognizant of your time, Quentin, and everybody's time here. And Valley is one target of many. It's we launched into this district, seeing the regional potential, seeing the parallels actually to with these rocks in a lot of good places in Nevada, and so to find something like Valley on one of our first swings is pretty exciting and really speaks to the potential out there. So we've, as I mentioned, strong treasury, good shareholder support, and I guess I'll just leave it at that. Except to say that we have probably, we would have the best looking team in junior mining in the Yukon if it wasn't for Mike Berkey and Sitka. But otherwise, I think we're doing pretty well. But really a fantastic, really professional and driven team getting us to where we've gone so far. So lots to look forward to in 2025, and I'll leave it there.
All right. Awesome presentation, Scott. Look, amazing success story. I could ask a lot of different questions, but clearly, you're on the right track. You've done the infill drilling. You're kind of working towards putting together a more advanced resource and so forth. But you've also taken some steps recently. And the one question I want to ask, you did bring on some new people here recently. Do you want to just mention your strategy? Like, tell people who you brought on and why.
Yeah, so Gil Lawson, most recent addition to the board, mining engineer, very experienced, has brought 4 projects from early stages through to successful production. So I'm really happy to start building out that part of the team, and we can, I think, realize so much value here by advancing Valley quickly and moving it towards production while we continue to have that upside of an explorer and continue to unlock this district. And we also brought on Brian Hegarty, VP Sustainability and External Relations, to help us move forward, to help us chart the course, build strong relationships here in the Yukon, and really strengthen the relationships that we have.
Awesome. Okay. Well, look, very, very much appreciate your presentation. We do have to move on to our next presenter. Let's see. I believe, Banyan is next. Tara, did you join us? There you go. Thank you. I'll hand it over. You just fire away.
Thank you. Similar to Scott, you're looking at our project area, and our mineralization starts right on surface. So, low waste to mineralization ratio as well. We're moving towards our PEA as well. Key great features on our property are this existing infrastructure. You can see roads, power line, even cell phone service. We're in a brownfields area with within a 20-minute drive of the community. So it's definitely got some significant infrastructure advantages on our property here. And I know many of you have seen this before. Oh, there it did work. I'm going to make lots of forward-looking statements because, like the other presenters, I'm pretty excited about our project and the prospects with these gold prices and with these exciting developments that we're seeing. And then you're going to start the video for me in the background there, and I'll keep this one pretty short because I know some of you have seen this video before. But here's our 7 million ounce deposit that we put out the resource on in 2024. We've since drilled 21,000 more meters. Very similar, these sheeted veins that you see at Snowline, 7 million ounces at 0.63, but a 0.6 cutoff, that's 4 million ounces of a gram. Or here at a 0.9, that was 2.4 million ounces at 1.45. We know this mineralization goes to depth, actually to 650 meters vertically. That's an 850 meter hole. Here are our drill holes from 2024, including the highlight from our last release. And if you saw this morning's release, you would have seen that we had another 135 gram meter hole, 209 meters of 0.63. And, similar to Scott, this is an exciting jurisdiction. We've got the size and scale. This is an emerging district with multiple large deposits in it. Mining districts where you build a mine is generally where there's other mines, because that's where majors like to get concentrated in a specific jurisdiction. So 7 million ounces, and that's a stepping stone for us. We believe there's lots of room for this to grow, and I'll show you that. We got a great team. We've continued to add to our team as well to bring on the expertise as we move into the next phase. We don't quite have the cash that Scott does, but we started the year with $11 million, which does fund us into 2026. Plus, we have active income from our rentals and services that we had. We had over $1.5 million in rentals and services in 2024, and we anticipate maybe not quite that much next year, but certainly we will continue to have active income. Infrastructure is so important when you look at the capital costs of building mines, and of course 2 mine sites right immediately adjacent to us with potential synergies. And looking at this gold price, where else in Canada have you got gold trading at $5 per ounce? And certainly we've positioned ourselves with some exciting catalysts through 2025, which I'll tell you about. We focused 2024 on adding value. That drilling was focused on defining the areas with infill drilling that we knew could potentially be part of the mining pits in our PEA that we've got planned for Q4, looking for that 1 gram-ish material that could be part of your starter pits and maybe even some of that 1.4. We did focus a little bit on expanding ounces. It was the first time we'd got back to drill on our airstrip deposit. We're excited to get those results fairly soon. I think that'll show that deposit also has lots of room to grow and also some higher grade. It's higher grade anyway at 0.75. And we, our first time back since 2022 or 2020. We did some geophysics this year, both a 3D geophysical inversion on the main Ormac block, really trying to find where the proximal extensions are. And yes, there's lots of room to grow at depth and east-west on the deposits as well as to the south. And then we flew a ZTEM survey. We're still in the hornfells around that. We haven't found our granitic intrusion yet, Quentin, and that's certainly something that we'd like to take a hard look at. And we just got those results before Christmas, and we're analyzing those as we go into 2025 here to determine our best exploration plan. Meanwhile, we've been doing scoping studies and optimization studies so that we can be prepared for our PEA, continued with our metallurgical program and some great results on that. Our baseline environmental, we had a great baseline data set from the 2 mines beside us, and we now have the 3 years, over 3 years of background data that we need, which means we're funded and we've got a great background going into 2025. We're going to continue to have our drill results from last year. And yes, we got them into the lab fairly late. We had a few delays in our program last year. We'll have a resource update in Q2. We'll start drilling on our targets, probably expanding the resource, but maybe following up on some of the results of this year. We'll get more details as we get closer to our field program. And those results will come into the fall along with a PEA, which we plan for Q4. As soon as we can get it out. But, looking at this and, Valley's a fabulous deposit. Banyon's a fabulous deposit not far behind it. There are not very many large open pittable projects in North America. And we have the synergies with the 2 projects beside us, a potential Hecla or with the Eagle assets down the road. There's not very many places where you could have 15 million ounces in resources with lots of upside potential, because we believe we have plus 10 million ounce potential, and we've seen some analysts write higher numbers than that at the property, and there's great synergies with some of the assets there. So certainly I think we're in a good position. Here's just some of those results, the results from this morning and some of our highlights there in yellow. Really focused on defining that higher grade zones, and this mineralization predominantly starts from surface. So pretty exciting, the results that we've put out and what we're planning or what we'll have in the next month or so. Again, strong treasury to weather the storm, which you talked about, Quentin. Some great solid shareholders, and certainly management's very vested with a large stake in the company. Actually, I'm invested in quite a few Yukon explorers because I love the jurisdiction, and I certainly am really excited about the geology. So there you can see our shares outstanding. I think you can see in our sections, if you're to take the time to look at all of our sections and the results that we put out in the 3D model, there's lots of room to add ounces. We're working on redefining the geological model this year to give ourselves some more confidence in that. And we'll be able to talk to you about that at Roundup for those of you who want to come by our core shack or the Metal Investor Forum or the resource conference here over the next few days. So lots to talk about, lots of room for us to grow. Our metallurgical results, 93% from the CIP-CIL with gravity, 84 from the gravity flotation, and we're working on some additional testing to potentially get that gravity flotation up a few percent, which we think is potentially feasible. We got a great project, infrastructure. We've done the baseline data. We know that we don't have any key wildlife areas right around us, and we have hydropower already on the property. We're talking with First Nation Development Corp and Yukon Energy about actually getting connected to the grid. And great that Snowline's found their intrusion. We still have to find ours. I'd like to find that as part of my career. So certainly it's something that we're putting a bunch of time and effort into understanding from the information we have. All of the companies here, we have tremendous upside potential. I think we've been hit disproportionately hard with some of that Yukon overhang, and certainly have a good plan this year to re-rate and kind of get back into that range of where an explorer with a project, which we believe could likely be a mine, should be. So I'll let you have a few questions and hopefully catch up a bit on time, Quentin.
I want to elaborate a little bit on one of the comments you made about finding the granite, the source, the mothership of this. Look, this has got to be one of the biggest endowments of gold of any reduced intrusive system in the Yukon. Okay, what Tara is saying is that most of the gold they found to date is hosted in rocks that are outside of the probable source intrusion. It's not to say that this isn't a reduced intrusive type gold system. It's got all of the characteristics. I want to emphasize that. It's got very similar style of veining, mineralogic associations, with the bismuth and tellurium, stuff like that. It's in every way, shape, and form. It's the same type of deposit. And what Tara is saying here is that, they think there's going to be a source intrusion somewhere on this property. And when they find it, it could be a big deal. Now, I don't want to necessarily harp on that because you found a lot of gold here.
We got a lot of gold, and then we can extend that gold.
Exactly. You got a big resource. And I want to, Tara, sorry, I'm not going to ask you a question. I'm going to actually put what your deposit is in context just for people. Okay. If you look at the Fort Knox deposit, okay, the history of it, this is over in Alaska. It's not too far from Fairbanks. When it started out, in fact, I was there the month they opened up. I got to see the opening, the first benches of mining at Fort Knox. It was running about 0.95 grams, okay? And then over time, it's, the grades have gradually lessened, and now it's like 0.4 gram or something like this. But if you look at the average grade of Fort Knox, and it's produced, I think, 9 million ounces, over time, it's been about 0.6 odd grams per ton, which is very similar to what you're dealing with here. Okay, and I don't want people to think, oh, you need to find the magic intrusion or something like that. No, this is a great story in its own right, and I just want to emphasize that. So, Tara, if you have any more comment, feel free.
I totally agree with that, and of course we can see lots of areas to expand in the Hornfels here with near surface mineralization, and the geophysics we did gave us some really proximal targets to do that. So I can arm wave and say, give me another 20,000 meters, and I can significantly increase this deposit. So it's going to be an exciting year in 2025 for us. We have options, and we've got cash in the bank. We've got some exciting catalysts coming up.
Awesome. Okay. Well, very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Let's see, Mike, are you available? Let's jump on to Sitka. All yours.
I sure am. Thanks, Quentin, and thanks everybody that went ahead of me. Yeah, pleased to be here. Sitka Gold. See our tagline, we're focused on discovery. That's what we've been doing since this project started. This is the RC Gold project in the Yukon. So forward-looking statement, like everybody, I'm a geologist, so I'm excited about looking for these deposits, and you always believe and hope that you're going to find more, and we think that's what's going to happen with Sitka Gold. So again, we've seen this image of the Tombstone Goldbelt in the Yukon. We're in the western portion of it. This is an area that's received the most exploration historically in the Tombstone Goldbelt. After the discovery of Fort Knox Mine, people came over and started looking in the Yukon. This area has seen a lot of placer mining, so that's where they focused. We access our property by either driving the highway from Whitehorse, but Dawson City, famous Dawson City, has a paved runway, 5,000 feet, and they have jet service, so we can fly in 737. So the access to our property is slightly different than everybody else, but it's super well located. You hop onto the Klondike Highway, and about 35 kilometers off the Klondike Highway is where you get into our property. So the power line runs 35 kilometers away from us. So our access and our infrastructure is exceptional. Tombstone Gold Belt, we've heard about it, very prolific belt of rocks. We have a big package of rocks. We're the yellow here in the middle. So we just started working on this property in 2018. And in January of 2023, you can see we announced our initial inferred pit-constrained resource, 1.34 million ounces of gold at a grade of 0.68 grams per ton. That's in two deposits, you can see, Blackjack and Eiger. The Blackjack is the higher grade and larger of the two deposits. It was 900,000 ounces at a grade of 0.83. So that's where we've been focusing our exploration efforts in the last couple years. You can see this part of the district in the western part of Yukon. This is where Terra's Banyan property is, the Ormac on the kind of right hand of the screen, Eagle deposit to the north. This has received a lot of exploration over the years, but the most recent kind of phase of exploration, starting in 2020 when the Eagle was going into production, has borne a lot of fruit, 11 million ounces. So not only Terra's discovery, our discovery, but also additional resources at the Eagle deposit, the Raven deposit that they found. So it's a very prolific part of the belt, and it because of the access in the area it's at, it's received a lot of exploration. So as I mentioned, this is just a view looking to the north. This yellow blob you see is the 0.25 gram per ton cutoff. So that kind of outlines the area of that initial resource that was announced in January of 2023. Since then, we've continued to focus on expanding this deposit. That initial resource was based on 7,500 meters of drilling. Since that time, we've done an additional about 14,000 meters of drilling that's expanded that mineralized zone to the south. So we've received all our assays up till the end of 2024. We just had a press release in early January. We have all our results in hand. So we are updating this resource and hope to get it out fairly early in the new year here. So look for that as a catalyst to kind of drive Sitka Gold. The Eiger is just off the page here. We are fully funded. We have $15 million in the bank. We have a 30,000 meter drill program planned for next year. 15,000 meters of that drilling is going to be in this Blackjack saddle, which is just on the right-hand side of your screen. You can see some drill holes, and the Eiger that's just off the edge. So we're going to focus a lot of attention on continuing to expand our known deposits because they're not fully defined yet. So that's the focus on discovery part. We're not done yet, even on our known deposits. This is just to highlight these two tables. What we've been finding, the table on the right is 9 holes that intersected plus 100 gram meters gold. And that's just a kind of a number that people use to suggest that you're onto a potentially economic deposit. Since we did that initial drilling in that resource, we've had another 13 drill holes that hit plus 100 gram meters outside of that Blackjack resource estimate. That'll be included in the next estimate that we release hopefully fairly soon here. So we've had a lot of great holes, great success. So we're pretty happy about what's going on in this part of our project. But also in this past summer, it's called the Clear Creek Intrusive Complex. There's a cluster of 7 intrusions in the core of this area, 7 by 5 kilometers. And we're looking in the central part of it, in the northern part. But this summer we acquired claims that covered the southern part of the Clear Creek Intrusive Complex. It came with 4 really compelling drill targets, and we were able to put 2 holes in 2 of those targets. The first one is the Rosgobble stock. This was drilled with very shallow drill holes back in 1995 by Kennecott, 50 meters deep reverse circulation drilling that indicated there's a large mineralized system in here. And that mineralized system, we went back in, we drilled the first ever diamond drill holes in it. Drill hole number 1 that went into that hit 119 meters of 1.05 grams per ton, and there's about a 40-meter intersection of 2 grams per ton within that. The second hole went underneath that, hit mineralization to 300 meters depth, so there's a lot of potential in this Rosgobble stock, and we're going to dedicate about 10,000 meters in this. We step out typically 100 meters. That first resource on Blackjack was based on 7,500 meters of drilling. So we're optimistic that with our plan that we're hoping to be able to define perhaps an initial resource on this with our program this summer. The Pukaman intrusion, it's about, Rosgobble is about 5 kilometers south of Blackjack. Pukaman's about 2 kilometers, again on this newly acquired ground. It's hard to see, but the intrusion's kind of the stippled area in the back. There's soil geochem on here. We drilled the last 2 holes of the season off an existing road about 500 meters to the north of the contact zone, where there's plenty of intersections there that are, 50 to 100 meters of a gram. We wanted to test the intrusion-hosted mineralization and see, how this stock pans out. The first hole, we hit 350 meters at 0.3 grams per ton, lower grade, but there's lots of multi-meter 1 gram intersections in there. You can see the soil geochem is stronger off to the right. So we weren't able to access the area that, as geologists, we'd prefer to drill first. We drilled off our existing infrastructure. So we're really excited about the potential in here, the interaction between the contact zone and the Pukaman stock. Contact is hosted mainly in metasediments. So there's something a little bit different going on here, but there's a lot of gold indicated in this area. Again, next year we're planning on about 5,000 meters of drilling here. So we have, 2 known deposits, 2 potential deposits that we've drilled discovery holes on. So pretty exciting year lining up for next year. This is that Clear Creek Intrusive Complex. Again, you can see we've focused on the northern part where the Blackjack and the Eiger deposits are. We're starting to look at these other drill targets on the property, and a 30,000 meter drill program planned for next year, fully funded with $15 million. So that's going to be an exciting year for us. To date, we've drilled about 27,000 meters on the property. So this upcoming year is going to double the amount of drilling. So it's a very, very important and exciting year for us. We do have, we're focused on the core of this Clear Creek Intrusive Complex. You see off to the east that goes towards Terra's property, which is about 50 kilometers to our east. We have other targets in our pipeline that are prospective as well. But certainly this core area that's everything we're doing is road accessible is where we're going to focus. So we have a lot of prospective ground. We're still working on some of our pipeline projects that are feeding into it, but the focus clearly is expanding our known deposits and discovering new ones. Our share price has been flat for a number of years. The end of this year, we saw a nice appreciation in the share price as some of our higher grade drill holes came out. So folks got excited about that. The new year has seen a decline in the share price. I think that affects everybody this time of year. So we think that's an opportunity as we look forward to 2025 with the biggest program we've ever had, 2 new discoveries that we're going to be doing a lot of drilling on. A new resource in the Blackjack area. So again, we're well financed. We've completed the acquisition of this entire area. We've had great success last year with our drilling. We have the biggest drill program ahead of us. So yeah, it's an exciting year, and we're really looking forward to it. So thanks again for everybody's time.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mike. Look, I'm going to ask you one quick question. You know, you showed one of your latter images there shows all of the intrusions. Like you've got both properties combined on the image, and you show how you just have innumerable intrusions. Is it safe to say that you have underneath there one principal feeder, like one magma chamber that's feeding up these different intrusions, or how do you guys see it?
Yeah, there's definitely that potential. It's pretty obvious they're coming from a common source. There's been age dating that show that these intrusions are all within 1 to 2 million years of each other. We're doing additional age dating, so we'll be able to kind of do some of the academic work that feeds into that theory. But being that they're in such a confined area, they all have gold associated with them. There's a commonality to them that, of course, we're trying to figure out, and that's part of the focus on discovery, right? What's going on? What's driving this system? So it's exciting as a geologist, and could be very exciting as an investor too.
Wonderful. All right. Thank you so much. I think everybody is really excited to see you drill, commit to the 30,000 meter program and see you have the cash to do it. I think that's absolutely critical when you're in a discovery phase like this, because you do have so many targets here. And, I can imagine even 30,000 meters, it'll give us quite a bit more picture, but you're going to have a few years of drilling because this is a beast of a system. You got a huge inventory of targets to test. Anyway, very exciting. Thank you very much. Look, with that, I just want to take a few minutes for closing here, and I realize we're at the hour right now, so I'm going to keep it relatively short. Appreciate everybody's attendance to this. I think that everybody listening, you can take this going forward. You can think, wow, this is potentially the next great gold discovery jurisdiction. Every gold cycle tends to have 1 or 2 profound geographic regions, jurisdictions where just discovery after discovery is made. Nevada was the ground zero in 1980s, early 1990s, and then I think we saw maybe Africa, West Africa, especially in the 2000s up into the 2012 era. This time, I think it's going to be the Yukon. Now, there's one question that I do want to answer before. Like, there's several people that ask questions. Appreciate it, and sorry we're running short on time. But there's one question that somebody threw out, and I'm going to kind of summarize it. This person basically says that I advise that the Tombstone Goldbelt has Nevada-size gold potential over time. And yeah, it will take time to unfold. Like in Nevada, it started out slow, and then, over 6 or 7 years, and then boom, you find Gold Strike, and that was a huge discovery. And then boom, pipeline, and then boom, et cetera, et cetera. Like they're punctuated events, in discovery. But why do I, basically the question if I had to distill is, why do I think the Yukon could host similar potential? Okay, if you look at the Yukon, the sedimentary rocks that basically form the underlying rock architecture of the Yukon are nearly identical to Nevada. You basically have a sequence of sedimentary rocks starting in the late Paleozoic all the way up through the Phanerozoic, and it's just the same package of rock. Okay, and we even see Carlin type deposits in the Yukon. Don't forget that. There's definitely Carlin potential up here too. But we also see the same granite associations in Nevada. Probably the lesser known truth is that a lot of the gold is probably associated, at least many geologists view that it's associated with reduced intrusions. Okay, there are some direct links in Nevada. Like there's certain gold deposits that are unequivocally tied to reduced intrusions. Okay, and geologically, I guess what I would say is hand to heart, I would say the Yukon is about as close, geologically, as close of an analog to Nevada as any place on the earth, and I firmly believe the same potential is there. I think we're just going to have to, get some popcorn, sit back, watch these discoveries made. Lots of targets to test. What you've just seen today is just a small taste of what's to come. Really appreciate everyone's attendance. Thank you.